Welcome back to my official YouTube channel. This is Gaurav, and look, just yesterday we got the news about this New Zealand team has just announced for the T20 World Cup and for the India tour. A lot of guys have been asking me about once Michael Wagener was in my show earlier, that when he gonna be coming back to my show, where he is, and I tell them, everyone, whoever was asking with me about Michael Wagner, I told him he's the best guy to talk about New Zealand cricket, and there is nothing, there is no news about this New Zealand cricket, and when they're gonna play after this World Test Championship final. Okay, so and suddenly yesterday, from nowhere, the team has announced for the T20 World Cup and for the Indian tour and for the Bangladesh tour and for the Pakistan tour also. So we thought this is the best time to bring our best, one of the best guests, Michael Wagner. So today I've been joined by Michael Wagner, all the way from New Zealand. Michael Wagner, welcome back to my show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so how are you? A lot of people were asking about you, that when he gonna be coming back to your show. He was the best guy. He was the best what do you call it? Best guest from your show. He had a proper knowledge about cricket, what is happening in the New Zealand, what is happening with this cricketer of the New Zealand. So a lot of people were asking about you.
Well, that's very flattering. I think the advantage with New Zealand is that it's a pretty small place, so there's not that many people that actually know what's going on. So if you do know,
yes,
there's an awful lot of people that follow Indian cricket. There's not quite so many that follow New Zealand cricket.
Yes, and I've been joined by my mate, Australian mate, Lucas. Lucas, welcome back to my show. And how are you after yesterday?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Not too bad, thank you. I should actually say that people might get the wrong idea, because I don't watch T20, so for context, I'll just say
a lot of my viewers have known this, that you are not a big T20 fan.
so for context, I'll just say I'm terrible, and we'll just leave it at that.
Okay, no issues. Just for the viewers, I want to announce this: the New Zealand team for the T20 World Cup final that will be played in UAE, and obviously for the Indian tour, the what you call it, the team remains the same for the T20 World Cup and for the Indian tour. Let me announce for the full team for T20 World Cup and T20 series that will be played in India for the New Zealand team. And the team is Devon Conway, Martin Guptill, Kane Williamson, Glenn Phillips, Tim Seifert, Mark hold on a minute, Mark Chapman, Daryl Mitchell, Jimmy Nisham, Mitchell Satno, Todd Astle, Ish Shodhi, Kyle Jamison, Trent Bolt, Lockie Ferguson, Team Saudi, and Adam Milne is the injury cover for the World Cup and India tour. So, Michael, let's go. I want your reaction about. Are you happy with this team? Are you surprised with the team, or are you shocked by this team?
Well, I mean, not shocked, perhaps. There's a couple of interesting selections in there. Todd Astle was a bit of a bolt from the blue. We weren't really expecting him to be there. He'd played a couple of T20 matches, and I mean, he'd been good for Canterbury, so it's not like he's been picked out of nowhere. Yes. But that was a surprise, because there's other guys who we thought were ahead of him in the queue. But there are a couple of big surprises. I think Finn Allen missing out is a surprise to a lot of people. Yes. I mean, he's had a pretty good start to his career, but he's only really done it in New Zealand. He hasn't had wide enough experience to know whether or not he's going to do that wider. But the guy who I think is the big miss here is Colin Munro.
Yes, that's the main topic of this discussion today.
Yeah. So here's the other guy that's the other Colin de Grandhomme. He's also someone. It's I guess they've opted for Daryl Mitchell over Colin de Grandhomme. Yeah, Mitchell scores the runs a little bit more reliably, but scores them slower. But is better at batting at the death and is better at bowling at the death. De Grandhomme, you can only really have him bowl in the middle over. So you can sort of see the discussion, the decision there. I would have gone for de Grandhomme, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. But the big one really is Colin Munro. And to put this in context, Colin Munro, if you look at all New Zealand batsmen in Asia, have scored at least 100 runs. So we're not counting someone that's just had one game and scored 90 and 90 or 45 or something. All guys that have scored at least 100 runs. He's got the best average and the best strike rate of anyone in Asia. He's just played the PSL, the Pakistan Super League.
Yes.
Pretty good bowlers. The bowling standard in Pakistan is pretty high. Played
Very
in
high.
UAE, the same pitches that are going to be played in the World Cup. He only played 7 matches, but in those 7 matches, he ended up being one of the top run scorers for the whole tournament, despite only playing the 7 matches. I think after the 7 matches, he was the top run scorer. A few others went past him when they played up to I think 14 matches were the most they played. So played half the number of matches, still in the top tier for the run scorers. Also succeeded in the Caribbean. Again, good spinners, pitches keeping low. Dominated that tournament. BBL scored lots of runs there. He's I think the highest run scorer in domestic T20 matches of any New Zealander in the last 3 years. He's done everything he needs to do to succeed, except he played in the BBL instead of playing the New Zealand domestic competition. And this is basically him being punished for that. Now, the worst thing about that is New Zealand cricket had cut his contract, so they weren't paying him anymore to stay available. But then they're punishing him for not being available. I think it's a terrible decision. And the reason that it's come about is because New Zealand decided to pick the T20 squad early. We've picked our T20 World Cup 15-man squad now, when we only need to be putting in a 23-man squad. We don't have to pick the final squad for another month or so. We could have had our tour of Pakistan and then named it after that. Put Munro on the tour of Pakistan, find out if he's still up to international quality. If he is, you want him in the team. If he isn't, take his name out of the list, by all means. But you've picked Martin Guptill, who's got a terrible record in Asia, over Colin Munro, who's got an excellent record in Asia. And you just feel for Colin Munro in that situation.
And obviously, I had a guest from England, and I was discussing about this Alex Hill situation that is currently happening with this England team. And obviously, I can understand that he's having some different issues. Currently, I am looking for Colin Munro, I think, is this the reason that a captain and the board member of this New Zealand team doesn't like him as a person?
No, I don't think that's it. I mean, I think from talking to Brendan McCullum, he felt that Colin Munro was a really good team member. Like he said that when he was in the squad, he was the guy that, not the first time he got picked, but after that, he got dropped because of his attitude off the field. Then he picked it up, came back, and he was one of the guys that worked the hardest in training. He was one of the guys always pushing others. He was in the nets. He was bowling as best as he could, bowling full speed at the other batsmen, trying to get them out, making it difficult for them. All those sort of things, attacking the bowlers in the nets, putting pressure on other players so they had to step up in their practices. Now, that's the sort of thing you want in a player. I haven't heard of any off-field incidents with him. So I don't think it's that. I think it's simply just because he was only considered for one format, and so that's why they cut his contract. I do understand that Gary Stead contacted Colin Munro and said, look, you're not going to be in the World Cup, but we'd like you to go on the development tours of Pakistan and Bangladesh to help bring through the other players. But we're not going to be picking you for the World Cup, even if you score 100 in every innings. So, at that point there, and by the way, we're still not giving you a contract, so we won't be paying you. That's pretty disrespectful, I think, personally.
Exactly.
And he turned it down, and I don't really it would be nice if he took it, but I don't really blame him.
Okay, Lucas, you want to ask something? Then I will go for it.
Yeah, with the T20 squad New Zealand, was it a surprise to you that Kyle Jamieson wasn't in the squad?
I think Kyle Jamieson is in the squad.
Yeah, Kyle Jamieson's in at least a couple of the squads. He missed out on the Pakistan squad. That's because he's playing in the IPL, and it's happening at the same time. Okay. I think he's in the World Cup squad, and in some ways it's a bit of a surprise that he is, rather than that he isn't. because he's had a few good T20 matches, but he hasn't yet sort of starred in T20s like he has in the Test matches. And it's a different game, that you bowl in different places. I'm not sure that he's a great fit for T20 just yet. I think he will be, but I think probably at the moment the red ball is the one that suits him.
Yes. Just read the statement of Colin Munro yesterday after the team announcement. What he just said in the Instagram. I've just got this statement from his Instagram account. He just said that extremely gutted to miss out on the T20 World Cup squad. Was definitely a goal of mine that I wanted to tick off. Look like I might have played my last game not by choice. What are your thoughts on that, Michael?
Well, they're looking at him saying you're 35. It's no longer if you're looking at a future World Cup, he's probably starting to get. You're not going to invest too much more in a player who's 35. So I think he's thinking that the selectors are looking elsewhere. And I mean, Finn Allen's coming along so quickly. There's another guy. There's a guy, Cartney Clark, who's playing in domestic cricket, who I think you're going to see him probably fire this year. He showed enough signs in the couple of opportunities he had for Northern that he could be a big star. There's going to be players coming through, and he's going to, now that he's considered yesterday's man, it's going to be hard to get himself back in the team.
So, as you have said that he has chosen to play Big Bash League over this New Zealand domestic tournament. That's the main reason that he has been. That's the main reason that New Zealand selectors are not looking after him for the selection for New Zealand squad.
Yeah, look, a little bit of that, a little bit of the guys they picked to replace him. We scored hundreds at like 2 runs a ball, So if you give someone a shot and they step up like Finn Allen and Devon Conway did, there's a point where you say, oh well, maybe they've got someone who's going to do the job. But I still think, there are 5 guys in New Zealand who have been doing really, really well in domestic T20s around the world, and Colin Munro is one of them.
But I am seeing with this team that you talk about Finn Allen. Obviously, he's just lightening up this. He's been not in the squad also. Obviously, and Martin, you have talked about Martin Guptill. Martin Guptill is not like he's not been a younger guy. Obviously, he's also getting older day by day, and obviously, he's not been the best of form in the in the Asian condition. So why is this happening with Colin Munro also?
I guess the question is, how much do the conditions actually matter? In T20 cricket, where the pitches tend to be fairly similar. I mean, there is some variation, but in an ICC event, you'd expect the pitches are going to be roughly the same as the pitches everywhere, because that's what they're looking for. So there's a question of how much being in Asia actually matters compared to being anywhere else. I think it does, but it's hard to know. And we know that one of the grounds there, I can't remember which one, has quite long straight boundaries. Martin Guptill is excellent in grounds that have long straight boundaries and short square ones. Look, he hits the ball a long way straight, and he struggles to get it over the boundary square. Put a short boundary square, long straight boundary, all of a sudden it's just made for him. So that's you look at those grounds, you think maybe that will suit him a little bit more than it might do. And when it's being prepared by the ICC, not by the home board, things change a little bit as well. So I can see the justification. Guptill has been pretty good in New Zealand conditions recently. But he has
always been good in this New Zealand condition. It's nothing new.
Yeah, and that's true. And so it's hard to know. I wouldn't have gone with Guptill personally. I mean, in my 6-man squad, Kane Williamson was only coming in if it was a tricky pitch. He was the reserve, the floating reserve. It was between Williamson and Finn Allen for who had the other spot. If it was a flat track, it was going to be Allen. If it was a bit tricky, it was going to be Williamson. So I don't think that the selectors see it like I do. And so and they're being paid to do a job, and you can't argue with their results. They've been doing pretty well. But this is a surprise to me.
And just Sovan has also joined us. He obviously is in my team. Obviously, you know him. And let's move on. Again, I'm just wanted to ask you: is Devon Conway is also the reason that he's an opener, and he obviously Martin Guptill has been also been picked for the T20 World Cup. So Devon Conway is also an opener. So is this Devon Conway is also the main reason that what do you call it? Colin Munro is not in this squad?
Well, I mean, Devon Conway at the moment is probably one of the first names you'd write down for any team in the world.
Yes.
I mean, you look at his stats, and they're basically you can put him up against Baba Azam, and he scores the runs at roughly the same average, at roughly the same strike rate, 50s at roughly the same rate, 100s at roughly the same rate. You look at those two guys, and you go, well, there's not very much to choose between them. They're both about the same age. They're both likely to have a pretty good long career, and they're very, very similar. I think when I did a look at their stats, it was something like you had to get the second decimal place or anything before you found a difference between them. They were that similar. So you can't not pick Devon Conway. So the question is, someone has to miss out. I felt because Conway's a keeper, I think Seifert is the one that's possibly a little bit lucky. That we're looking at a keeper batsman keeper. Do you take someone who's a specialist batsman who also keeps, or someone who's a bit of both but isn't quite as good with the bat or with the gloves? I think Seifert's probably a little bit lucky.
So we'll continue for a minute.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Lucas. You talked about Team Seifert. I think he is Brendan McCullum's man. I've seen Team Seifert being carried to Trinbago Knight Riders, Kolkata Knight Riders in the IPL and the CPL. I think Brendan McCullum has a big backing. And when it comes to Glenn Phillips, actually Glenn Phillips will outskill and has more, natural talent than Team Seifert. Do you think a Team Seifert is being taken? It has been picked because of Brendan, or do you think he merits a place? Because if you look at all the stats, he has never been a great player of spin. Even though he has played in the IPL in the practice games, I have watched the games, and he has looked at sea when it comes to spin. Do you think Brendan McCullum has a big say on this team?
I don't think that Brendan McCullum has a big say on the team selection, but I think he certainly has some weight when he says, "I think this guy's going to be the best batsman in the world." I think people listen to that.
Yes.
And I mean, you'd be silly not to at least take at least consider it. I know that McCullum really rates Seifert, but and we've seen glimpses of it. There's been a couple of times where he's shown what he can do. I think, but look, I mean, there's no bad options. One of the things that we've got here, the New Zealand team, is that we're at a point where we've never had in our history. Yeah. We could pick a second 11, and they'd probably have a good chance at making the semi-finals. We have incredible depth at the moment, and so the decisions here is like, which good player are we going to drop? And so there's a point where you can say, well, look, I really rate Glenn Phillips. I think he's going to be
wonderful.
Potentially, look, if they get him in the Test team soon enough, I think he's got the chance to be the next Kane Williamson in terms of results, and more like a Ross Taylor really in terms of style. But and he's also, the other thing with Phillips is he's a really handy bowler to left-handers. He bowls off spin. It doesn't turn much, but it turns a little bit, drifts quite a bit, and gets that sort of awkward sort of move that some of them spin, some of them don't. And so you don't quite know what to do if you're playing it as left hand. You don't know if to play for the spin or not. Because of that, he's very difficult for lefties to play with, and he's got something like he goes at about 14 runs and over against right-hander and about 4 runs and over against lefties. So if you've got him in the team and the opposition's got 2 left-handed batsmen in, you can throw him in, give him an over or 2. That gives you a bit of flexibility at the death, but also there's a good chance he might pick up a wicket or So he's a really handy option to have he's a good fielder too. He's a really good option to have in the team. He can also go pretty quickly. So you put him in batting at 4 or 5, it's not a problem for him. He can score just as well there as he can at the top. So he's a real asset. But you look through the whole team, there's some great players. I would, but yeah, as I said, I'd be quite tempted to give Conway the gloves.
Okay, that was my question. I think there is Team Seifert. I think I've seen Glenn Phillips also keeping wickets in the NetWest T20 Blast, and Team Seifert, Glenn Phillips, and Devon Conway can also keep. So who would you give in this gloves options? So you have already mentioned that you would pick Devon Conway as a keeper. One more question regarding the Glenn Phillips. That don't you think he's a big fan of Steve Smith? Because I have seen his batting style. He tries to copy Steve Smith, and he tries to bat like Steve Smith. Where Steve, I've seen very closely the Steve Smith. He tries to copy his style. Steve Smith. Don't you think he's a big fan of Steve Smith?
Yeah, look, he said that he watched what Steve Smith was doing and noticed that he was giving him the ability to access the leg side and score more runs off deliveries that normally would be causing problems. So he went and practiced and said, I decided to give myself 3 months and see if I could do it. And after 3 months of switching, he ended up averaging about 60 in first-class cricket by doing it. So it made sense to to keep going. You know, especially if you're doing that in New Zealand pitches. It's New Zealand domestic pitches can be pretty dicey. If you can manage to not get out LBW by standing in front of your stumps, it shows that you're a pretty good player.
And he's a great guy as well. And he's not. I guess he's a little bit different when it comes to typical New Zealander. He is kind of I've seen him. He's more of a kind of a dasher, and the way he talks, the way the way he feels, he has a different side to him. He's a bit of character because he has got a little bit of South African blood in him as well. So maybe that's why he is very different, isn't it?
Yeah, he went
more
to
of
the same
Aussie
school. He went the same school as Kyle Jamieson, and you see Kyle Jamieson has a similar attitude as well on the field. There's, when you play, because I coached in schoolboy cricket I didn't coach against either of those two, but I coached against Dale Phillips, Glenn's brother, and he scored a wonderful century against us, destroyed us in a game. Finn Allen destroyed us in a game too. So I got to see those guys up. When you played against Auckland Grammar, they had a different attitude than other teams did. So it's not a surprise that he comes across a little bit differently to some of the others, because that's in keeping with the school that he played for and the culture of the cricket that they had there. It's very easy to see one group of players and think they represent all New Zealanders.
Michael, just Gaurav, I wanted to ask about the mindset. Does this New Zealand team? They picked IPL over Pakistan series. Do you think it's a kind of a safe option that the New Zealand cricket CEO and the New Zealand team they think that in their mind that yes, our Pakistan, maybe we can tour in future, but if you miss the IPL is a bit. If you miss this IPL, then you may not get a chance in the next IPL, and you don't want to be. I heard somewhere Jeremy Coney saying that you cannot take on BCCI. So maybe that's why. Do you think that's why they picked the safer option by going to IPL, not having any tussle with BCCI, and that's why. What do you think? Why did they choose IPL over Pakistan series?
Well, Michael has the same answer. He will say this again, that everybody has to pay the bills. Michael, go ahead.
Yeah. There's part of it. Everyone, you do have to pay the bills. There's also the point where the IPL is being played in UAE on the same pitches that the World Cup is going to be played in. And
that's a good reason.
That did come to part of the decision. Gary Stead talked about that when they were talking about how many players they were going to take out. They thought that it was better preparation for the World Cup playing against the best players in the IPL than playing against the Pakistan players because of the fact they're playing on the same pitches. And in Pakistan, the pitches are going to be different in all likelihood to what you're going to get in the World T20 or the T20 World Cup. So I think there's something to say for that, but there's also New Zealand cricket know where we stand financially.
Yes.
Kane Williamson has played less than the average Australian player. So
My
the top paid New Zealand player is less than half. I think it's less than half actually the average Australian player. So because of that, New Zealand cricket can't step on the player's ability to earn an income from outside that, and the IPL is the number one way of doing that. So if you want to keep the players loyal, you've got to give them an opportunity to earn outside of what they earn from New Zealand, because there's bigger money to be made, and these guys, they will be loyal if you're loyal back to them. And so there's part of that too, that you don't want to stop their earning potential.
Michael, do you remember even Brendan McCullum, I guess, he went, in 2009, he went to New South Wales to play a T20 game. I guess he missed a match for New Zealand, and it was hue and cry in New Zealand media. And somebody, most of the ex-New Zealand cricketers termed him as money hungry, or Brendan, doesn't respect New Zealand, playing for New Zealand, doesn't take the pride. Do you think it's going to be the same? Now all the players, are taking the Brendan McCullum's route. So do you think the media will respond in a similar way, or they are quite happy and they know what to say and where to say?
Some people will. Some people certainly will. But I think Brendan was a little bit of early in his career, wasn't very well liked. The way that he behaved wasn't particularly, it was certainly not, early Brendan McCullum was certainly very different to late Brendan McCullum in terms of attitude and the way that he acted. And so he wasn't very well liked. And the result of that was any little thing got jumped on. Whereas the guys, are now pretty well liked. You're not gonna improve your standing in the public by criticizing the current players. Yeah, it used to be that if you come out and attack Brendan McCullum, that pushed your popularity up in the public. It's not going to happen. Attacking Kane Williamson is not going to have the same impact that attacking Brendan McCullum did, because everyone likes Kane Williamson. There's been every year there's a cause celeb, there's a player who must get dropped. And whether or not that was Tim Southey a couple of years ago or Martin Guptill, Brendan McCullum was that about 4 times that the public were calling for him to be dropped and calling for him to be sacked, and he shouldn't be allowed to play. So there's different feeling about Brendan McCullum than there is about other players. I guess if it had just been 1 or 2 as well, rather than New Zealand cricket saying we're not going to pick any of these guys, that would be different too. If they'd been picked and chose not to, it's different to not being picked.
And Michael, I've just seen this team for the T20 series for India against India and for the T20 World Cup. The big surprise is that Adam Milne is the backup option. I think he's been covered for if somebody's injured, that he will join the team. And I have been following Adam Milne for a very long period of time. He's been the best bowler in the T20 leagues. And I've just seen this squad. Obviously, there are a lot of the out-and-out swing bowler. Obviously, Team Saudi, Trent Bolt, Kyle Jamieson. Don't you think Adam Milne would have been more than handy in this kind of situation, that he has a better record in the T20 matches?
Yeah, I guess you have to look at the role that he plays. And Kyle, so his main role is the middle overs enforcer. And Lockie Ferguson probably does that role slightly better.
Yeah.
So you're looking at that, you're going, okay. So then the other role that he can play is he can bowl at the start and bowl at the death. Now, at the death, he's a little bit shaky. At the start, he's outstanding. But is he as outstanding as Tim Southey and Trent Bolt? That's a pretty big call.
Yes.
And then you've got the other option is Kyle Jamieson, who offers something different. One of the things you want in T20 is being able to ask different questions. So you've got Kyle Jamieson, who's tall, he's going to challenge batsmen on the top edge. You got Tim Southey, who's quite tall but cuts the ball off the pitch. Basically bowls very fast off spin. You got Trent Bolt, left arm, swings the ball in. Then you've got Adam Milne, bowls 150 Ks, predominantly one swings in. Lockie Ferguson bowls 150 Ks, predominantly swings in, both about the same height. So you're looking at that, you're going, he doesn't really add to the diversity of the attack like the others do. You can argue that I would have certainly not made the call on him versus Lockie or him versus Lockie versus which two out of them and Jameson until after the Pakistan series, and I would have sent them all to Pakistan. I would have tried to get them to play there, and found out who's actually going to step up.
And Mike. Yeah, and Michael, I guess, do you think Team Saudi will get a chance? Because in 2016, he was only bowling quickish off spinners to the batsmen in the nets just to accommodate that they had no spinners. I mean, they had no off spinner in the team. If you recall in 2016, do you think this year he will get a game? And my second, so you can first answer that, and I have another question. Do you think Team Saudi will get a game?
He's the vice captain, so that says that they're probably rating him a little bit. He has been a very good T20 player recently. He's really worked on his T20 game and the ability to swing the ball even in conditions where it doesn't look like it's going to swing, and then to bowl those cutters that really some of them are like forked lightning off the pitch. When he gets that going, he's pretty hard to play. He's also there's a few top players around the world that he's had the wood on recently. So if Kohli's batting, you probably want some Saudi in the team. There's a few guys that he's got a pretty good record against.
Same goes with Rohit Sharma.
Yeah.
And so you sort of look at that and you go, well, he matches up well with some of the best batsmen. That's pretty handy to have as well.
Yes.
And another player, he played a very good knock in 2019 in Sri Lanka. Tom Bruce. I'm really disappointed why Tom Bruce is not included in this squad, because he has been, a phenomenal player in Plunket Shield and in the Super Smash. So what's the update on Tom Bruce?
Oh, I mean, he's a good player, but we've got lots of good players. I guess the advantage that Tom Bruce has is that he's got an ability to bring teams home in a run chase.
Exactly. That's the thing.
And he can do it at a really good rate. You put him in a situation where you need 10 and over, he can actually take the team home in those sort of run chases. And we haven't had many opportunities in international cricket to do that. There haven't been many games where he's come in the right situation to really shine. So he hasn't really had a chance to show what he can do in internationals. But in the matches he has had, he's not had many successes. And, ultimately, some of it is about when you get your chance, you've got to take it. And he hasn't really done that to the same degree that you would have liked it. I mean, I think he's a good talent. But is he going to be is he a better option than Glenn Phillips, than Daryl Mitchell, than Colin de Grandhomme? I think he's probably a little bit too limited in terms of his mental game's really good, but there's a few limitations in his game that you think probably in any other era of New Zealand cricket he would have been a regular player, but probably not in this one.
Michael, the only problem with Glenn Phillips, what I see of him in the 100 ball and in CPL, he has to get a good start. If the ball hits the bat, he is confident. But if he misses the first initial 5 to 6 deliveries, he's under tremendous pressure. If you recall in the previous game, the way he played Imran Tahir, he smacked it over through mid-wicket for 6. And the next ball, I guess he was knocked over by Imran Tahir. The only thing with Glenn Phillips is consistency. That's what I feel Team Seifert and Glenn Phillips are in that corridor where they need to know how to pace the innings. That's why I brought Tom Bruce into it, because you also have, a player of Devon Conway who is also accumulator. So do you think Glenn Phillips will open the innings or bat at number 3 so that the likes of Conway and Williamson just to accommodate the strike and just keep the scoreboard running? Do you think that will be the strategy?
No, I think what they're going to go with is they will have Conway opening with Guptill, probably. And then Williamson at 3. Maybe Phillips at 4, maybe him at 5. But you've got the option. I think you see that the Conway-Phillips partnership has been looking really good. That's been working really well. And I think there's a point where you look and you say, well, you kind of, they have the idea of you want to have a hitter and a strike rotator. So you've got Conway and Williamson who are the strike rotators, and then you've got the rest of the team full of hitters. You've got Chapman, you've got Neesham, Doug Brace was another guy that I thought was unlucky to miss out. He's been at exceptional form with the bat, and not so much with the ball, but with the bat he's been outstanding. But you've got the likes of Phillips and Guptill and Neesham and these guys who are hitters more than strike rotators. And so,
Michael Guptill. Oh my God! You can't put your money on Guptill.
But one thing I would say is that consistency. People talk about someone being inconsistent in T20s. If you look at a success being to score 30 runs or more at a strike rate of 130, if you say that's sort of, if you do that, a strike rate 130 or higher, if you look at that as a success, only one player in the last 5.5 years has been successful in at least half their innings, and that's Quinton de Kock. No one else has. So everyone else has failed more than they've succeeded. Now, if you look at that through the whole world cricket, there's no one who's succeeded more than they've failed. Quinton de Kock's been equal. Everyone else has failed more than they've succeeded. Consistency is a myth. It doesn't happen. Players aren't consistent. If you get 2 good performances out of 5, that's if you get that from 3 or 4 players, you're going to win a lot more games than you lose. So I think consistency at 40% is a pretty good result in terms of consistency. I'm not too concerned with trying to be more consistent. I think you want to make sure that when you are in, that you win the game. And I think Phillips.
Michael, will you stick with Guptill for the tournament? Because in 2019 you must have got this fear of Guptill. In 2019, whole throughout he didn't deliver, and this time around in the PSL he didn't perform well. 6 matches, 69 runs, average strike rate, and not able to deliver. So will you stick with him, or you will give him 2 games if you perform, or else we will look at Seifert or any other options?
Well, he'd be a specialist fielder in my team.
Team man. Yeah.
He'd be 12th man. He'd be coming on the field and just fielding in the covers or short wicket. That's he's outstanding at that. But I don't know why he's in the squad personally. I wouldn't have him there. But since you have picked him, you've probably got to give him a chance. But if it comes down to him or Seifert, I think you pick Seifert. I think Seifert does a better job at the top than Guptill does. And I think when Guptill has a good day, he can win your games. There's no doubt about that. But so can everyone. There's no one. There's no one in that team who can't win your matches. It's just a question of who's going to do it, who's the most likely to do it. And I think Seifert's probably more likely to do it than Guptill.
Mike, and you can also open with Kane Williamson. I think he is, someone who can definitely just just score runs at his will. Because in IPL, when you opened, he looked a different player. Batting at number 4 because of his franchisee. They don't have a proper number 4 or 5. That's why Williamson bats at 4. But if you play Williamson on top, then definitely you have, you will get 70, 80, even 100. Ken Williamson has scored in the past. And do you think opening with Williamson also has you can definitely punt on it. So what do you think about Williamson opening the batting?
I would have had Williamson opening possibly in Munro at 3. Kane Williamson is actually better as an opener than he is batting down in T20 cricket. But then you also know he's so good against spin, you kind of want him to be batting when the spinners are on. And you don't want him to get a good ball early up and get out to an unplayable ball early on when, you'd rather someone else was facing that one. So I can see the reason why you'd probably put him at number 3 or number 4. I think the fact that you've got Devon Conway there means it's probably having Conway and Williamson together. It's that fear that they're both a little bit slow to get started. You find yourself, if they both get out just after they get set, you could be 40 for 2 after 6 overs or after 7 overs, and you're suddenly staring down the barrel. So there's a real risk there of picking those 2 together. So you'd sort of want to, it's hard to know where they're going to go with that. But I think you do want a hitter at one end. And so the question is, who's your better rotator? Is it Williamson or is it Guptill? Williamson or is it Conway? And I think it's probably Conway.
Okay, I have a question about the Colin de Grandhomme. Why Colin de Grandhomme has not been in this team? What was the main reason, according to you? Because earlier it used to be Jamie Neesham was not been part of this T20 squad, and now he's in the T20 squad for the World Cup and for the Indian series. Daryl Mitchell has recently joined the team, and he's been part of this T20 World Cup. And suddenly, Colin de Grandhomme, who was the part of this T20 team for a very long period of time, suddenly not in the T20 World Cup for the New Zealand team. So how big shocking is this for you?
He was at number 4, if you remember, in the Sri Lankan series.
Yeah, look,
Yes.
and I think number 4 is the right position for him. I think he's a specialist batsman in T20 who bowls the odd over.
Yes.
Again, I'd have Munro probably bowling more often than I'd have de Grandhomme personally.
Michael, Wagener was an opening bowler. I mean, I was shocked to see under 19. Yeah, he was batted in number 11.
Yeah. Munro is actually a much better bowler than he looks.
Yeah, in under 19.
He looks like he's a bit average. He's got pretty good numbers, and the reason he does is because when he bowls, if I can see on the camera here, he keeps his wrist back, so he lets go of the ball. It comes out later, and it often puts backspin on it instead of coming out at the full speed. So it's like every ball's a slow ball. He runs it hard. He bowls it as if he's bowling fast, but it doesn't come out as fast, and it sort of holds up a little bit off the pitch, and it skids on a little bit. So it makes it hard to get under and hard to play. Whereas a lot of the other bowlers have their wrist come through the ball. You get a bit extra bounce and a bit extra pace, but it's if you're used to that, the one that's holding back and not and sticking a bit low, and it becomes really hard to play because you're expecting the ball to come on a bit more. So he's got something that's a bit different to a lot of the other bowlers. But the answer with de Grandhomme, he had a shoulder injury, and since that injury, he hasn't really come back as well as we used to. His batting's not quite been as good. His bowling's not been as good. And so you sort of look at it going, we just don't have enough time. Mitchell's sort of overtaken him. I can, as I said, Mitchell gives you the death bowling options too. Mitchell's an outstanding death bowler. In the Northern Districts, he just bowls the 20th over. He doesn't bowl any other overs. That's
wow.
When he was playing for them. He just bowled over number 20. That was it. And he did every year, every game, he bowled the final over. That was it. Because of that, he's really good at those little variations that you need at the end to be able to, and that's what his game is built around as a death bowler. That's pretty handy to have in your team when a guy that's capable of being one of the top 5 batsmen can also bowl at the death and mean your top bowlers get the bowl earlier on. It's a pretty useful option having that in your team.
But Michael, I was just seeing the team for the Pakistan tour and the Bangladesh tour, but Colin de Grandhomme is still in that team for the Bangladesh and Pakistan series.
But
not in the T20.
Yeah, and again, I would not have picked the T20 squad, the final squad, until after that Pakistan series, because you want to actually see how Colin de Grandhomme's going to go.
Exactly.
Come back from an injury. How's he doing it? So I think it's a really bad decision for New Zealand cricket to have named that squad so early. But de Grandhomme is, they are seeing him still as a long-term prospect. They still see him as being one of the best players in T20 cricket going forward, but just hasn't quite recovered from his injury enough yet to be able to secure a spot in that squad in the World Cup team. So,
and Michael,
go ahead.
I was just picking the squad, it also means you are not even rewarding the performances, though. Like the players who perform well in Bangladesh series and in Pakistan series, there's no motivation because we have already declared the 15 or the 16 men squad. So even if you perform well, you perform out of your skin, you win your country the series, there is no reward. You can't get into the World Cup team. So I guess that's why.
A batsman hits 5 centuries and still doesn't get picked in the team. And so you've got to say there's a problem there. But the idea behind it, the sports psychology behind it, and there is a sports psychologist that New Zealand sports teams in general have been using a bit recently. And he says that one of the things you want to do is you want to take out external pressure, and so the players can deal with the pressure of the ground, of the game.
Okay.
And so taking out the pressure of selection and saying that there's only the pressure of the game on them will get better performances from them. And it means that the idea is that then they'll be able to focus on the performance rather than focusing on, will I be getting in the World Cup and worrying about failure. You don't want to be focusing on worrying about failure. You want to be focusing on trying to succeed. So that's the sports psychology behind it. And, I mean, look, there's probably some very good research saying that's the best way to go, and I'm probably wrong. But I'd like there to be a reward for players that do well.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael, there is another guy. There's a big guy who is in the Texas, US. Do you think he is also regretting that he retired? And if he would have been in this squad, Corey Anderson, the gentleman, he would have also gone. I mean, he would have also been selected for the Pakistan and the Bangladesh series, and maybe in the World Cup.
Yeah, I think Corey Anderson's days of being a really top cricketer are probably finished.
Too early.
Yes.
Yeah.
And look, it's a pity because it's a pity that he was so good at bowling. Because if he had have just focused on batting, I mean, he was neck and neck with Kane Williamson all the way through at the junior level. Like I think Kane Williamson hit 40 centuries in junior cricket, and Corey Anderson hit 37. Like they were the two standout players by so far. They both hit 5 centuries in 6 matches in the finals of the schoolboy competition. Four centuries in 5 matches. Yeah, 4 centuries in 5 matches each. They both tied the record for the most centuries in that competition. I mean, they were neck and neck the whole way through. And then for Corey Anderson to now be a bit of a biffer as opposed to a proper test batsman like he could have been is a bit disappointing because he had the ability to be a real star, but he just got injured too often from bowling, and it's the operations and the recovery has just meant that he's never quite got his batting touch back that he did have. Look, I think the fact that he's living in America means it makes sense for him to focus on representing America rather than focusing on trying to get back into the New Zealand team where he's not playing domestic cricket. He's locked out because of COVID lockdowns. Our borders are closed. He can't get in. What's he going to do?
Yeah. And Virat Kohli rated him very highly. I mean, he was very impressed with Corey Anderson, Team Saudi, and Trent Bolt because they all played in that World Cup. So that's why it's a big mess. And Michael, what's the update on? I mean, I was searching about Jesse Ryder. Is he still playing cricket? Because I was not getting any news regarding Jesse Ryder's.
Look, he's a player coach for a club team. He's not playing any domestic cricket or any top level cricket. I think he did quite well in the Easter tournament, the last one that was held, which is where the top club team from each of the 6 regions play against each other. And I think he did quite well in that, but cricket is more a hobby for him now. Yeah. Playing cricket's more a hobby than a career. He's doing quite well with the coaching though. I mean, his team's made that top 6 competition, so that's a good sign.
Michael, I have one question regarding Mark Chapman. Tell us something about Mark Chapman and Todd Astle.
Todd Astle. Okay, so both of them are actually good selections. When I was writing down my team, I didn't put Mark Chapman's name down. And when I saw him picked in the squad, I was like, oh, that's a really good call. He's a really sensible pick.
Yeah.
Mark Chapman's there's 2 things he offers. He scores runs quickly. He's good at scoring boundaries, but he also hits the balls to odd places. He's half Chinese. So there's a massive... Yeah, he's Hong Kong Chinese. His mum is and his dad's a Kiwi, so that's sort of why he's played for Hong Kong and New Zealand. And he lived pretty much half his life in Hong Kong and half his life in New Zealand. He's very much equally loyal. The advantage the huge advantage with that is that about 10 to 12% of New Zealand's population are East Asian, Chinese, Japanese, Korean,
immigrants.
Immigrants, but a lot of them are 2nd or 3rd generation New Zealanders now. Their grandparents immigrated to New Zealand, and they've been born in New Zealand, and their parents were born in New Zealand. So that they're immigrants, but they're New Zealanders. And so having someone that looks like them playing for the national side is actually hugely important. When Adam Perori was the first Maori player to play for New Zealand in the late 80s, early 90s. Since that, we've now got heaps of Maori players playing. Trent Bolt's the most obvious example, but Shane Bond was Maori, Kyle Mills was Maori, Daryl Tuffle. No, Ross Taylor's Samoan. But again, Ross Taylor's really important for that. We're seeing Samoan players coming through now in domestic cricket. The likes of Sean Salia, James Baker are starting to come through playing some really good cricket. And Ross Taylor's been a big part of that. So Mark Chapman's hugely important for New Zealand cricket just on that front. But he's also useful in that he hits the ball to strange places. He's hard to set a field to. If you haven't studied his game, there's a good chance that he could hurt you. Yeah. And he bowls left-arm spin. So he's got that extra strength to his bow. Todd Astle started off as really a batsman who bowled spin and is now a spinner who probably bats at 9 or 10. He can score runs, but his big thing is he's got 3 different leg breaks. So that all look quite different out of the hand. And so it means that if you're watching his hand, it's really easy to miss the wrong one. Because he's got so many different varieties of his leg break, you're watching that, it's hard to tell which one's a leg break. And so when the wrong one comes in, it means people have to play him really cautiously. And because they have to play him cautiously, he's got the chance to get wickets from in batsmen misread things. So there's a real good advantage with him. He's got one that turns a mile when he gets his big leg break going. It doesn't always land in the right place, but it doesn't need to. He only bowls it once and over, and it absolutely flies. So when he bowls that one, his normal leg breaks don't do that, but when that one happens, he can get a lot of wickets with the batsman not ready for that one that suddenly shoots off. And in UAE, that could be a really good weapon to have. So he's a good option for a really turning track. I mean, I think Sodhi's probably a better spinner, but everyone scouted him, Ish Sodhi. Everyone knows what Ish Sodhi got. Everyone knows his variations. They can read his slider. They can read. They haven't all got the same reads on Todd Astle. So there's an advantage there that perhaps he could be, and also, I mean, if you've got a leg spinner and a fast bowler, you can clean up the tail. If you've got a leg spinner at one end, a fast bowler at the other end, tail end batsman just can't handle that combination. So having Milne or Ferguson bowling with either Sodhi or Astle is wonderful. If you can get into the
so Michael, you'll have your 4. Then I guess you will go with the bowling attack with Ferguson, Bolt, Santner, Sodhi, and maybe all-rounder in Daryl Mitchell, and then the top six batters. I guess that will be your bowling options.
Yeah, possibly. I think I like the option of having Phillips in the top 4 because it gives you that option of bowling to the left-handers. Nisham being in, I'd probably have Nisham batting at 5 or 6, so he gives you an extra option there, and Daryl Mitchell in there. So you've got, I always like to go in 6 or 7 bowling options in a T20. I'd like to be able to have matchups. So you can go, this type of batsman, these type of batsmen are good against these type of bowlers and are bad against these type of bowlers. Let's make sure we don't bowl any of these guys and do bowl these guys. Being able to do that means to be able to do that, you need to have 6 or 7 bowling options. And I think teams that go in with extra bowlers tend to win more often than teams that go in with just 5. So I'd be wanting to see 6 or 7 bowling options. You've got guys like Southey who are a good hitter at the death, so you can have him played almost as a batsman as well as a bowler, as an all-rounder. So you can afford to play an extra bowler if your bowlers can all hit.
Okay, what has happened with the Ross Taylor? Has New Zealand cricket moved on from Ross Taylor as a T20 player?
No. I mean, he was a little bit similar to Colin Munro in terms of he found out that he wasn't going to be making the squad. They had picked him to do some of the games, and then they had a conversation with him, and he said, "Look, I'd rather focus on getting ready for the test." And they said, "Yeah, great, let's do that." So it's by mutual agreement that he's not playing in the squad rather than him being dropped. But he wasn't in the 15-man squad. And to be fair, he's probably our 8th best T20 batsman. So you can't really, in a 15-man squad, you probably don't want to have 8 specialist batsmen in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
And and just Michael, and talking about the India series, just a brief. If you play two spinners, I mean, who will be? Will you play three spinners or two spinners in India?
In the tests or in the
In the
in
test
the white ball?
series. Yeah, in the test series.
Would you certainly play Ajaz Patel?
Yeah.
Whether you play a second or a third spinner, it's going to come down to the pitches. But I mean, you look at Southey's almost playing as a spinner because his cutters go off the pitch so much.
He's like Joe Root. Yeah, he's like Joe Root.
Yeah. Well, he's a bit faster, and he's he gets he's 6'5", so he gets a bit of bounce too.
Yeah.
But I mean, you want to play him in Asia. You've got Wagner's good no matter where he plays. It doesn't really make much difference. In fact, the more variable the bounces, the better for him. So England didn't suit him very much. Playing in India probably would suit him a bit more. So your question is, do you pick Trent Bolt, Kyle Jamieson, or do you pick an extra spinner? So there's so you've got Ajaz Patel, you've got Tim Southey, you've got Neil Wagner. Who are your other two?
Will Somerville? Will Somerville? Yeah.
Will Somerville maybe? I mean, India don't have a huge amount of left-handers, so picking a guy who's particularly good against lefties, maybe not such good. If we're playing Pakistan or if we're playing Sri Lanka where they've got a few lefties, that's a good call. But against India, probably not Will Somerville. But then we know that left-arm spinners that don't turn the ball much has been one of India's weaknesses. So Mitchell Santner is in his element there. And the other thing, without speaking ill of BJ Watling, he was rubbish against keeping against spin. And Mitchell Santner probably lost 9 or 10 test wickets because of Watling fluffing stumpings. Blundell's not going to do that. So a keeper that's able to actually take those wickets is going to make Santner a lot more useful than having him beat the batsman, draw him out of the crease, and then have Watling fluff the stumping, which happened quite often. When you're a flight bowler, you get flight and drift are your main weapons. You need to have a keeper that's actually going to, your whole way of bowling is bowling for stumpings. And if your keeper doesn't actually take the stumping, it takes out your main weapon. So I think Santner will look a lot better when he's got a different keeper. So there's a point where he could be the option that instead of de Grandhomme. But then de Grandhomme also looked amazing playing in UAE in those test matches there. So he could be, and we've seen New Zealand swing bowlers do well in India in the past. Dion Nash, Daryl Tuffy, both had really good series in India. There's no reason to say that that Colin de Grandhomme might not be able to get that the SG ball to hoop around as well.
Yeah, you can also bring Jetan Patel. He just recently toured with the England test team.
If only Jetan Patel was as good for New Zealand as he has been for Warwickshire.
Exactly.
Or Wellington. I mean, he's a great bowler for Wellington too. Just Wellington and Warwickshire. It's outstanding. Maybe we need to change our name starting with W. Find a different name for the team that he can play for us. But he was so good at those against for Wellington and against international quality batsmen. But you get him in New Zealand, he never quite delivered the same way that we were hoping he would.
Michael, do you think there are some players, those who are made for domestic cricket? Like Todd Astle is phenomenal bowler when it comes to Plunkett Shield. He has picked up heaps of wickets, 7 firsts, 8 firsts. But when it comes to Test cricket and when it comes to international cricket, each story has outbowled him whenever the competition is on. And sometimes, Matthew Sinclair, one of the players that was very good in domestic cricket, and many players, Hamish Marshall, James Marshall, all these players, do you think? Some players are only made for domestic cricket and they don't quite deliver in international.
It depends. Sometimes there are players who their technique is the thing that's the difference. Sometimes it comes down to scouting. I don't think that you could make that accusation against Todd Astle. I think his test record was actually pretty good before he retired, and it was a big disappointment when he did retire. I think he played 4 tests. We won 3 of them, and a couple of them he bowled out the tail to bring us a win. So And one of them he didn't bowl at all. He didn't get a single delivery in one of the test ones. So you can't blame him or credit him for that one. But he's actually done all right when he's had the chance. But I think Ajaz Patel is just a better bowler, and so you've got to let Patel have the ball. Look, I think there are guys who get found out that they have their cap of their ability as domestic cricket, but I don't think we've seen many of those. I mean, maybe Jamie Howe. I mean, he was an outstanding domestic player.
Outstanding player.
Yeah.
Daniel Flynn, another one, looked like. I mean, you watched Daniel Flynn, and it looked like it was the love child of Kumar Sangakkara and Brian Lara. When he just looked amazing. But he didn't actually score many runs. He scored beautiful 20s. Absolutely outstanding.
Yes.
I mean, the best 20 you've ever seen. And he did it time after time. But you don't really want someone to score beautiful 20s. You want them to actually go on and score decent runs. And so, you look at someone like that. I think he's just announced his retirement from domestic cricket with thousands and thousands of runs from Northern Districts. But just never quite made it to the next level. So there are players like that. Some of it could be mental. Some of it could be just bad luck.
Michael, Jamie Howe. I mean, I was watching his highlights, and he was an outstanding batsman. Just the bat lift he had, just the way he batted, just the balance at the crease. And when it comes to international cricket, I mean, he was dumbfounded and he was not able to perform. But a brilliant talent, one of the best that like Jack Crawley, maybe from England. You can. Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking about Jamie Howe and Jack Crawley.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jamie Howe, you talked. I think Brendan McCullum was saying that he thought he was the best player he'd played with.
Central stacks.
And that's saying something. But he said that there was the biggest surprise to him that didn't go on. That he was expecting him to be a star and he never was, and just no one could quite figure out why he wasn't. But he just never quite kicked on. He just had, and he had some really bad luck. Like he had the time where Haddon knocked the stumps over and then claimed he was bowled, and there was he had some terrible decisions go against him too. So there's a little bit of bad luck in there. But there's also perhaps they just found the right place to bowl to him. Sometimes I know Richard Hadley talked about Hamish Marshall. And that he'd be more successful in international cricket than he was in domestic cricket, and he actually was. Yes. He had better record for New Zealand than he did for Northern. And it was, he said, on the lengths that people bowl in domestic cricket is slightly fuller, and he struggles against a slightly fuller length, whereas it's slightly shorter, like they play in international cricket. He's more comfortable against that. And that's why he picked him for international cricket when his brother had a much better record in domestic. So there is the difference in terms of that sort of stuff, but that's what I'd say. Yes, there probably are some, but I think most players, if you give them the right environment, they will step up.
Exactly.
Lucas, you want to ask something before we wrap the show?
No, you've pretty much covered everything there. Actually, there is one thing I actually did want to talk about. This morning we heard the sad news of Chris Cairns, who suddenly collapsed, and I do want to wish him and his family all the best through a very difficult time, and just a very tragic situation that's happened there.
Yeah, and I mean he's. I do feel for Chris Cairns.
Tragedy.
He's been considered guilty without really being proven to be guilty for some of the things in his career, and so that sort of left him tarnished. But I do feel for him, and obviously we want to send the wishes to the family, and it's hopefully he gets through it and he comes out. He was always a pretty good fighter when he was playing. One thing I did want to say, just Lucas, you being there reminded me, I think one thing that we've got to watch is New Zealand have picked a really, really weak squad for the games against Bangladesh, and have clearly not learnt the lesson from Australia of not, if you don't pick your best players against Bangladesh, you'll end up looking like a bit of you've got the potential to look like a bit of an idiot. And I think we have the chance that we're going to get absolutely destroyed by Bangladesh. with their particular squad they've picked.
So
I'm
Michael, I have a slight different view. I think they will prepare well. I think New Zealand, the only thing I have seen in New Zealand cricket is preparing well. So whenever they go there, they will definitely do something, and they will clinch the series 3-2. Mark my words.
And I think New Zealand hasn't won a single series in Bangladesh yet, if I'm not wrong. Go ahead with that, Michael.
Not for a long time. Bangladesh have had the win on us in Bangladesh. I mean, back a long time ago we did, but not since the 90s maybe that we've won a series in Bangladesh.
But Michael, they will prepare well.
Yeah,
better than Australia.
They will, and they'll take it more seriously. But the selection and the big plus there is that Glenn Pocknell, who's the Wellington coach, has been selected to coach that team.
Yeah.
He is an outstanding coach. He should probably be the Black Caps coach now. He shouldn't. I mean, I think he's a better coach than Gary Stead. He's got the ability that every player they've thrown at him who's been a problem player that's been failing somewhere else, like Finn Allen, struggled at Auckland, wasn't succeeding. James Neesham got dropped from Otago, couldn't make the Otago team, sent to Wellington, suddenly is a world beater. Finn Allen got dropped from Auckland, wasn't getting in the team, sent to Wellington, suddenly a world beater. Every player like that he's picked up has gone on he's turned them around. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with that side. And so there is the advantage there that they are, it's his opportunity to prove himself. And so that does work in our favour. But I've got lots of friends in Bangladesh. I've been to Bangladesh a couple of times. I love the country. I won't enjoy it too much if we get thrashed because I'll get lots of messages.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It's time to wrap the show. Thank you, Michael, for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you, and we have got a lot of information around New Zealand cricket and the squad. Go ahead, Michael. You want to say something?
Oh, so thanks for having me. It's been great.
I actually did have one question. I've only answered I only said two questions, but anyway, how many of the in this Pakistan tour, how many of the New Zealand Test players will play in the IPL?
No one.
No.
Only Finn Allen, I guess. He will only.
No, I think how many of the Test players?
Just one more thing, Michael. Just one more thing. I think Devon Conway is also not going to the Pakistan. That doesn't mean that also means that he has also been part of some of the IPL team.
Squad. Yeah.
I think he got picked up as a replacement player, didn't I? think that he was picked up as a replacement player in the IPL.
No, he was not. He was. He was about to pick, but they chose Rassie van der Dussen. The Rajasthan Royals. Yeah, they didn't.
Right. I'm not sure what's going on there then. But I did hear somewhere about him being associated with a team. They're saying there's 8 or 9 players there. So I think there is some sort of connection there. Maybe that just hasn't been announced yet. But I think in terms of the New Zealand Test players, how many New Zealand Test players are in the IPL? I think there's 7.
No, he's asking the Pakistan one-day series, I guess. Well, Lucas, are you asking about the Pakistan one-day? The New Zealand side for Pakistan one-day and T20s, I guess.
Yeah. Don't they play Test matches in Pakistan this tour?
No.
We're playing Test matches later on. This is
great.
The tour, sort of the white ball tour. And
okay, just another pointless tour without Test matches. Okay, that's sorry about that. I thought they were playing Test matches in Pakistan. Anyway. Okay.
Yeah, we are playing Test matches in Pakistan, but it's after the T20 World Cup.
Yeah. And Michael, I guess only Finn Allen is the only player that has been picked in the Pakistan one-day and T20 series. He will definitely be a part of IPL. I think maybe RCB has given him the chance to represent New Zealand.
Yeah, I think what's happened. I don't know the full story there, but I think probably they've said, look, we're not going to pick him, so you may as well send him to Pakistan and get him to play there. And if they have, that's good of them to have been upfront about it. And it's probably saved them some money as well because they don't have to pay him. New Zealand Cricket will be paying him instead of the RCB while he's out of the team. So
they've paid all the money to Kyle Jamieson. They don't have anything for New Zealand.
Thank you, Michael, for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you. I hope you will join once again after once New Zealand plays cricket, and we will have you back in our show. It was a pleasure.
And Michael, to make you happy, I'm wearing this.
I saw that. It's outstanding. I've got to say, it'd
Yeah.
be nice to be out talking cricket rather than talking selection and boardroom stuff. So
Yeah,
hopefully
yeah.
next time we chat, there's actually some cricket to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Thank you,
definitely.
Mike.
Thank you, Michael. It was a pleasure talking to you too.
Right. Catch you
Do
later.
like the video, guys, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for the update on the cricket. Till then, we will meet tomorrow. Till then, bye, guys. Good night. Take care.